Here are all the contents of this presentation: the definition of journalism, 9 principles of journalism, the watchdog function, the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics, challenges journalism faces, recent journalism trends, and future of journalism. At one, the obligation to tell the truth. The truth is important as it aids the public in making their decisions. Journalists state the objective method of stripping misinformation and biased speech to ensue free thinking from the public and only include dialectical and verified reports. When thinking of ways to make your reports as unbiased and impartial as can be, think of these two words: dialectical and verified. Only include dialectical and verified reports. Individuals are subjective and will have their own opinions, hence the use of these methods. Ethic number 2. First, loyalty to citizens. First, loyalty to citizens is very important. Some news organizations are either owned or co owned by companies, and these news stations can be biased to suit the owners' or investors' beliefs. Journalists must put citizens first to prevent biased news. An example of this is the China Daily Company, owned by the Chinese Communist Party, paying off these huge US news companies to promote China and spread propaganda about how good China is. As a journalist and news organizations on a whole, you should remember that the more credible your organization is, the more loyal your audience will be. At number 3, discipline verification. There is a line that distinguishes fiction and propaganda from real journalism, and this is called the discipline of verification. As a journalist, you should always be thinking about acquiring facts first and foremost. You should take transparent approaches such as being open about your sources, finding multiple witnesses to recall events instead of just one witness, and discussing with persons with opposing views. Always remember that verification allows for more accurate and reliable information to be published, which in return attracts new and larger audiences. Next, we have ethic number 4: maintaining a sense of independence. A requirement for journalists to produce impartial news is to maintain their sense of independence. This is a reliability. It should be a priority for practitioners to not aim to devote themselves to a specific outcome or a group. Ethic number 5: serving as an independent monitor of power. Journalists should serve as watchdogs to those in power, especially those whose power influences and affects citizens most. This watchdog action should not be abused or exploited to protect those in power. Citizens rely on the reports from independent sources, so the news should be accurate and credible at all times. Ethic number 6: providing a forum for public criticism and comment. Public discussion is almost always sparked by news. Society benefits best when the news is accurate, allowing for educated discussions. Neglecting the truth can disrupt problem solving among citizens. Ethic number 7. Making the news interesting and relevant. Journalists must strive to make reports interesting and relevant, as this helps readers engage with their work more. Practitioners should go out of their way to discover what their audience enjoys, as this will increase the effectiveness of their reports. Ethic number 8. Keeping the news comprehensive and proportional. Practitioners of journalism must find a way to balance the need to include all necessary information and the need to be concise. All news stories and reports being broken must appeal to all demographics, and you should be sure not to discriminate against anyone. Ethic number 9. Practitioners must have a moral compass. Being able to speak your mind helps in stimulating diversity within the newsroom. Open dialogue allows persons to share ideas and develop also, which improves the quality of news. So far in our presentation, we have defined what journalism is and we have discussed the 9 principles of journalism. Now it's time to discuss the watchdog function. Think of a watchdog quite literally, a dog that alerts its owner when there are any disruptions or break-ins from intruders. In journalism, this is a person who serves as a guardian to disclose information about the abuse of power from those at high positions to the citizens. This is an attempt to keep the order and also to warn against disorder. To make sure that all work is honest and has no ill motives behind it, watchdogs should not be affiliated with those they want to expose to prevent bias towards them, much like propagandist journalists, which are journalists who push subjective views to the public. This type of journalism often targets political corruption, mishandling of finances, and personal scandals, just to name a few. The Watergate scandal of 1972 was a series of political scandals that occurred under the presidency of Richard Nixon. Two watchdog reporters, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, heavily influenced the breakthrough of the Watergate scandal, which resulted in President Nixon resigning from his presidential position. The next topic to be discussed will be the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics. The society states that all journalists should adhere to these 4 principles. 1. Seek truth and report it. 2. Minimize harm. 3. Act independently. And 4. Be accountable and transparent. Verifying all information before publishing is crucial as this declines the chances of errors. In the case that the error is published, journalists should also take responsibility and acknowledge the error. Review. Information gathered should be reviewed and corrected before breaking a story. Sources should also always be identified so the public could make the decision as if they want to believe the reliability of the source. Only grant anonymity to those who potentially faced harm and explain to the readers why it was granted. Be the voice of the voiceless. When holding persons in power accountable, obtain a source whose voice is often ignored or overlooked. Purposely skewing facts should be avoided. Be clear of context and honest in your before publishing information. Journalists should think about who could be affected by it and how they will be affected. Extra compassion should be given to minors, persons who were violated, and those from foreign cultures. Remember, legal obtention of information does not always make it ethically right to publish it. The main obligation of ethical journalism is to act on behalf of the public, be impartial and unbiased. Avoid bribes as this damages credibility. Sponsored content should also be labeled so the public can distinguish between news and advertising. Explain decisions to the public and answer any questions raised about the accuracy and clarity of your work. Correct flaws in your work promptly and clearly explain the corrections. Speak up when you notice unethical conduct in the workplace. In all industries or businesses that exist in the world, there will be challenges faced at one point, whether short term or long term. The industry of journalism is no different, as this industry has faced its own trials and tribulations as well. The three most popular ones are discussed: the 24-hour news cycle, the lack of trust, and decline in circulation. And we will discuss them in Citizens
this
journalism
segment.
or street reporting is the concept of members of the public collecting and disclosing information that isn't discussed in mainstream news. This type of journalism gives a voice to those who are really heard or seen, and they share their stories to the world. This display is often seen in countries where the main news organizations are biased. Citizens journalism is a good way of promoting diversity in the media by speaking on behalf of the marginalized. However, this practice can be harmful to the professional journalism. The question of how reliable is this source is raised. Citizens journalists are not professionally trained and do not adhere to the ethical standards which professional journalists uphold. Biased and skewed articles then arise from citizens journalists, making them lose credibility. This harms the practice of journalism as people group professional journalists and citizens journalists into one group in one category and then decide that all journalists should not be trusted at all. The next challenge is the 24-hour news cycle. The 24-hour news cycle is a fast paced, constant flow of information in the news industry and within the newsrooms. News cycles were lengthened to compete and keep up with the internet, the fast flow internet. However, this fast flow of information can put a strain on reporters to analyze, resulting in errors and lack of fact checking as they are rushing to publish these stories. So basically, the more data there is for reporters to analyze, the more room there is to make errors. How exactly is this happening in the journalism industry? Well, the more errors there are in news stories, this means that the credibility of newsrooms is being depleted, and you could lose the trust of your audience. With the rise of the internet, there's no wonder why the circulation of print media has declined. As the internet has news readily available with the click of a button, the urge to go out and purchase a newspaper has almost ceased to exist. The issue with this switch is that real journalism is slowly being replaced by online news, with some of these online sources being poor in quality and unreliable. These sources will still gain attraction and attention because of the easy accessibility. News outlets find themselves competing with these online sources and losing. The future of journalism will more than likely be digital. The COVID-19 pandemic only fueled this switch to the internet even more, as persons have become more engaged with their electronic devices. If news organizations would like to stay afloat in this changing age, they should begin creating subscription-based websites to access news, as the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other popular news organizations have done.